Wherever you're tuning in from, I want you to know that today's message isn't just a word to hear, but a word to activate your life. I want to begin with a question: are you ready for expansion? Now, don't just shout out yes, shouting without considering what I'm saying. You see, expansion is more than a blessing. It's a mindset, it's a lifestyle, and it's a choice. In a world that often forces us to think small, I came to tell you today that God is calling you to build for expansion. But before you get too excited, let's be real for a second: expansion isn't always easy. There are moments when you're walking through dry places, moments when you look around and see no provision, no answers, and no sign of the breakthrough you're hoping for. But hear me clearly: just because you're walking through a dry season doesn't mean that you're in a dead season. I want you to listen to this today, because what I'm about to say will challenge the very way you've been thinking and how you approach everything from your career to your relationships, to your finances, to your dreams. If you think like a follower, you'll live like a follower. But if you think like a king, get ready to reign over your circumstances. I know there are some of you who've been struggling to see how any of this could possibly apply to your situation. You've been dealing with emotional dryness, financial droughts, and relational desert. But God is setting you up for something bigger than you can see. I don't care if you're walking through the wilderness right now. What I want to show you is that your dry place is the very place where God is going to bring a miracle. In the book of 2 Kings 3:8-19, we find a situation where 3 kings were in the middle of a dry desert, running out of resources, questioning whether they should continue. But one of those kings, Jehoshaphat, asked a key question: is there not a prophet of the Lord? And that question unlocked a miracle that nobody saw coming. This is your moment. What you are going through is the preparation for what's coming. When you operate with a mindset focused on survival, you limit yourself to only thinking about what you need to get by. Survival is about making it through, about managing and enduring the circumstances, but God has not called you to just get by. He's called you to thrive, to increase, to expand your territory beyond the limitations that your circumstances have tried to impose on you. Survival is about reacting to the pressures around you, but expansion is about taking control over your environment and acting in faith towards something greater than what you see. Too many people are trapped in the mindset of surviving, conditioned by the trials of the past or the obstacles they face. You've been taught how to endure, how to make do with what you have, but God didn't create you to live in that space. You are meant for expansion. If all you do is survive, you are missing the blessing of growth, the opportunity to increase, and the ability to prepare for what's ahead. Expansion requires vision. It requires a shift in how you see yourself, how you see your resources, and how you see your potential. When you're stuck in survival mode, you start to think small. You start to operate with limited faith, limited vision, and limited expectations. But if you step out of that small thinking and begin to build for expansion, your mindset shifts from scarcity to abundance, from I can't to I will. It's no longer about just surviving the moment. It's about thriving in every season, no matter how dry or challenging it may appear. Consider the story in 2 Kings when the kings found themselves in a desperate situation, stranded in the desert with no water for their people or their animals. The king of Israel, caught in a survival mentality, looked around and saw no way forward. He gave up hope and declared that they were destined to be defeated. But in that moment, Jehoshaphat, a king of Judah, asked a different question: is there not a prophet of the Lord? He refused to accept defeat just because the situation looked grim. Instead of surrendering to the circumstances, he sought the prophetic word that could change their situation. This is the kind of mindset you need to adopt. When things are tough and you can't see a way out, don't give in to the survival mentality. Don't accept the limitations around you as your only reality. Ask yourself, what does God have to say about this? Instead of running on empty, waiting for the next crisis, make room for God's word to transform your situation. Survival mode is reactionary. It's based on fear and scarcities. It's driven by the mindset that there's only enough for today, that tomorrow is uncertain. But expansion is proactive. It's based on faith, preparation, and the willingness to step out into the unknown, trusting that God will provide for what's ahead. Expansion says, I don't see how this is going to work, but I believe that God can make a way. Expansion says, even in the wilderness, even when there's no water, I know that God can provide. When you think beyond survival, you begin to prepare for what's next. You stop limiting yourself to what is immediately in front of you and start building for the future. Even when there's no sign of rain, you dig the ditches. Even when the resources aren't there yet, you make room for God to fill. That's the mindset of expansion, a mindset that dares to believe that the dry places are the very places where God is going to show up and bring the miracle. So don't just survive, build for expansion, prepare for abundance, and trust that God will bring everything you need in His time. When you understand that you are called to lead, you can no longer afford to think like a follower. The challenge many face today is that they have been conditioned by circumstances to see themselves as less than they are. We live in a world that often teaches us to submit to limitations, to accept the status quo, and to wait for permission to rise. But God has called you to lead, not just follow. He has placed within you the power, the anointing, and the authority to rise above every circumstance and shape the world around you. You are not meant to simply adapt to the world you are in. You are meant to change it, to expand it, to improve it. For too long, people have been taught to think in terms of limitations and restrictions. They have been trained to believe that their only option is to settle for what is given to them, to follow the trends and follow the flow of society, even when that flow is taking them down the wrong path. But when you embrace your identity as a leader, you begin to see the world differently. You see opportunities where others see obstacles. You potential where others see problems. You begin to recognize that the way forward is not simply about moving with the crowd, but about stepping out in boldness, with faith and with vision. Leaders don't wait for things to happen. They make things happen. They don't just follow the path laid before them. They carve out new paths and create opportunities where none existed before. This is not just about ambition or desire for power, but about recognizing your responsibility to move things forward, to increase the influence of the kingdom, and to build something that will outlast your lifetime. When you begin to think like a leader, your decisions are no longer based on the moment or on fear. You stop making choices based on survival and start making choices based on growth. Leaders take calculated risks. They are not afraid to step into the unknown because they understand that growth doesn't happen in comfort. They understand that when God gives you a vision, He does not always provide a clear map of how to get there. But leaders are willing to step forward in faith, knowing that the way will be made as they go. This is a mindset shift. You can't lead with a survivor's mentality. A survivor is constantly looking for the next way to make a deal, to get by. A leader, on the other hand, is focused on expansion, on building, on creating a future that is larger and more abundant than the present. When you think like a leader, you begin to anticipate what is coming, and you prepare yourself for it. You stop waiting for others to open doors for you, and you start opening doors for others. Leadership is about influence, but not just influence for influence's sake. It's about influencing others towards something greater, something that reflects God's kingdom. When you lead with purpose and vision, your impact extends beyond yourself. It touches your family, your community, your church, and your nation. Leaders don't just think about their own needs, they think about how to serve others, how to raise them up, and how to make the world better. You are called to lead in your generation. You are called to be a trailblazer, to expand what you see and what you know. When you think like a leader, you stop thinking like someone who is just trying to survive. You start thinking about how to build, how to create, how to raise others up and empower them to do the same. Leadership is not about titles, it's about influence. And your influence is limitless when you begin to think and act like a leader. To build for expansion, you must first understand the power of vision. Vision is the ability to see beyond what is right in front of you and to perceive what could be. It's about recognizing the potential in your situation and the world around you, even when things seem bleak or uncertain. Vision is what pushes you forward when everyone else around you is stuck in their comfort zone. It is what enables you to rise above the limitations of your environment and to reach for something greater. Many people go through life without ever fully tapping into the power of vision. They become distracted by the immediate challenges in their lives, the noise of the world, and the opinions of others. They are so consumed with what is right in front of them that they miss the opportunity to see what could be. Without vision, it's easy to get lost in the routine, to focus solely on survival, and to never expand past your current state. But vision opens up new possibilities. It lets you see doors that others don't even realize exist. It gives you the courage to step out in faith and pursue what others might call impossible. In the world of expansion, what you see is often more important than what you currently have. God's promise to expand you doesn't depend on your current resources. It depends on your faith to see what He has already prepared for you. If you wait for your circumstances to line up before you act, you will never move forward. You must act on faith first, knowing that God will provide what is needed along the way. This is the principle of building with vision to move forward in expectation, even when there is no physical evidence that things are ready. In the passage from 2 Kings, the king of Israel and his allies were facing a dire situation. They were in a dry place in a wilderness with no water. The conditions were harsh and defeat seemed imminent. But when Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, asked for a prophet, they were led to Elisha, who gave them a powerful word from God. God commanded them to dig ditches in the valley, even though they hadn't seen rain and there was no visible sign of water coming. God asked them to act in faith, to build for what they couldn't yet see. This is the kind of vision required for expansion. You are called to prepare to dig ditches, even when you don't yet see the water coming. It's not about waiting for the perfect conditions to begin. It's about having the faith to act first, to prepare for what God will do next. When you build for expansion, you are making room for what God is about to pour into your life. It's about creating space, making preparations, and positioning yourself for the blessing that is coming. Vision requires action. It's not enough to just dream about what could be. You must do something about it. If you believe that God is calling you to expand, then you have to start acting like it. You must plan, work, and prepare for what's ahead. You can't wait for everything to be perfect. Instead, you must be willing to take steps of faith, believing that as you act, God will meet you along the way and provide the resources you need. Building for expansion means having the courage to move forward even when you don't have all the answers. It means having the foresight to see beyond your current situation and to trust that God is already making a way for you. It requires building in anticipation with the understanding that what you are doing now will prepare you for the increase that is coming. You are not just building for today, you are building for tomorrow, for the expansion that is waiting on the other side of your obedience. To build for expansion, you must learn to embrace discomfort. The process of growth, whether personal, professional, or spiritual, is rarely comfortable. In fact, it often requires you to step out of your familiar territory to challenge your own limitations and to push past the boundaries that have kept you safe but stagnant. Discomfort is a natural part of expansion, and it's a signal that you are being stretched in ways that will ultimately lead to greater capacity. When the kings in the story found themselves in a dry place with no water, they were in a situation that was far from comfortable. The wilderness was harsh, their resources were running low, and it seemed like there was no way forward. But rather than retreat or give up, they were given a command: dig ditches. This action was uncomfortable. It required hard work in the heat without any immediate assurance that water would come. It was an effort that seemed illogical, even foolish to the natural mind. But discomfort is often where expansion begins. You cannot expand without challenging your comfort zones. Whether it's the discomfort of learning something new, adjusting to a new environment, or having to rely on faith in uncertain circumstances, expansion will demand that you stretch beyond what you already know. It's easy to settle for what you have because it feels safe, familiar, and within your control. But God will often call you to take steps that feel uncomfortable because those steps are necessary for your growth. Many people fail to expand because they fear discomfort. They fear what might happen if they try something new or go beyond what is familiar. The fear of failure, rejection, or simply the unknown keeps them stuck in a state of passivity. But the key to moving forward is to embrace the discomfort. Instead of running from it, learn to sit with it and allow it to propel you into action. Discomfort will show you areas in your life where you need to grow. It will reveal gaps in your understanding, skills, or character that you need to address in order to move to the next level. Growth is uncomfortable, but it is through this process that you develop the strength, resilience, and wisdom necessary for expansion. The kings had to dig in a dry valley because they had no other option. Sometimes God will put you in a position where there seems to be no way out, so that you can stretch your faith and expand your ability to believe for what seems impossible. The key is to stay engaged during these uncomfortable moments. Don't run from the challenge, but face it head on. Dig those ditches in the dry valley, even when you don't see the rain. This is a test of faith. Will you trust God enough to move forward even when the path ahead isn't clear? Will you keep working, digging, and preparing for what you believe will come, even when it feels like it's never going to happen? Embracing discomfort means recognizing that expansion requires a willingness to do the hard things. It might mean taking a job that's outside your comfort zone, moving to a new city, or pursuing a goal that feels daunting. But these steps are where the real growth happens. Discomfort is a tool used by God to shape you, refine you, and prepare you for the expansion that's coming. If you want to build for expansion, you must be willing to step into the discomfort and trust that it's leading you towards something greater than you can imagine. When you're building for expansion, you have to create a vision that's larger than what you currently see. Vision is the foundation of growth. Without vision, expansion can't happen because there is no destination to aim for. You can't build something bigger if you can't picture what it looks like. The king of Israel and the other kings were in a situation where they had no water and were in the midst of a dry valley. But the prophet Elijah gave them a command that sounded impossible: fill the valley with ditches. They were being asked to create a space for something they couldn't see, something they hadn't experienced. But in order for the water to come, they had to first envision it. Building for expansion requires you to see beyond the present limitations. You have to start with a mindset that there is more for you, even if you don't have it in your hands yet. When the kings were told to dig the ditches, they had to do it based on the word of the prophet, trusting that something they couldn't yet see would come. That's the essence of vision. You start with faith and expectation. You don't wait for the perfect circumstances or clear evidence to act. Instead, you act in anticipation of what's going to come. Creating a vision involves thinking beyond your immediate surroundings. It means stepping into a mental space where you believe that your future is brighter than your past. When you're living within your current constraints, it's easy to limit your thinking to what's right in front of you. But if you want to experience growth and expansion, you must train yourself to think beyond what is immediately visible. You may not have the resources, the people, or the circumstances you think you need, but vision compels you to move forward regardless. The challenge for many is the fear of failure or making the wrong decisions, but vision requires courage. Vision means stepping out into unknown territory with a clear sense of direction. When you begin to build for expansion, you're choosing to focus on the potential ahead, not on the obstacles that might lie in your path. It's easy to look at a situation and see all the things that could go wrong, but vision doesn't focus on failure. Vision focuses on what could be. The kings in the story had to take the words of the prophet as their vision. They didn't see the rain coming. They didn't feel the water filling up the valley, but the vision was clear. They needed to make space for it. Similarly, when you begin to work towards expansion, you need to create the space in your life and mindset for growth. You need to clear out any doubts or limitations that might prevent you what's possible. The water might not come immediately, but that doesn't mean it's not coming. Vision means you keep digging, even when you can't yet see the results. You prepare because you believe what you are building for is already on the way. Having vision also means creating systems, strategies, and plans that align with your future. The kings didn't just dig a random number of ditches, they dug in a strategic way that would allow the water to flow into every area of their need. They didn't waste their energy on random actions. Instead, they moved with purpose. Vision is about seeing the future and aligning your efforts with it, making sure that every step you take is in line with the goals you want to achieve. Creating a vision for expansion also requires a mindset of expectation. You have to expect that the things you're doing now are preparing you for what you can't yet see. You're not just building for the present moment, you're building with the belief that your efforts will bring forth something great. When you cultivate a mindset of expectation, you begin to act differently. You make decisions with a long-term view, knowing that every step you take today is paving the way for what is coming in the future. When you begin to expand, it's not about building in reaction to what is happening around you. It's about creating the future you believe is possible. If you can see it, you can build it. The act of creating a vision is the first step in creating the space for what's to come. Without that vision, you would be building blindly with no clear direction or goal. Vision is the first building block for all growth. If you want expansion, you have to start by imagining a future that is bigger than what you have right now. When you are building for expansion, you must be willing to take risks. Expansion requires you to step out of your comfort zone and go beyond what feels safe or familiar. In the story of the three kings, they were instructed to dig ditches in a dry valley where no rain or wind was visible. This act required great faith because it made no logical sense. They were being asked to prepare for something they could not see, and they were essentially creating a situation that seemed impossible. However, the key to expansion lies in being willing to take risks, even when the situation doesn't align with conventional wisdom or expectations. Taking risks means that you are choosing to act in faith despite the uncertainties that may surround you. It means stepping into opportunities that might appear risky at first glance, but knowing that if you don't step forward, you will remain stagnant. The kings could have sat in their dry valley complaining and waiting for things to get better, but they chose to take a bold step and follow the word of the prophet, even though it didn't look like it would work. This is what separates those who grow from those who stay the same, the willingness to take action, even in the face of uncertainty. Expansion also requires a mindset that embraces failure as part of the process. Not every step you take will lead to immediate success, but every step is valuable. You will stumble, you will face obstacles, and you will encounter moments of doubt. But risk involves embracing failure not as a final destination, but as a part of the journey. The kings didn't know if the water would come after they dug the ditches, but they still moved forward. Expansion is built on the courage to keep moving, even when the results are not instant. Being willing to take risk also involves letting go of control. Often people hesitate to expand because they feel the need to control every aspect of the process. But true expansion requires trust in God, trust in your vision, and trust in the process. When the kings dug the ditches, they were surrendering control to the divine timing and the prophet's instructions. They had to trust that their obedience would lead to results, even when they couldn't dictate when or how those results would manifest. Taking risks means stepping out with confidence, even when you don't have all the answers, and believing that the act of faith and obedience will bring about the expansion you desire.